Hey guys, this is going to be a build order for Mongol's Mangudai Rush in season 8. Mangudais have been basically gotten just nerfed throughout the seasons, but this last season they got a buff. They got 10 resources cheaper, and the resource allocation got shifted around. Instead of being 100 and I believe 20 food and 40 gold, it is now 90 food and 60 gold. So a little bit cheaper, gold heavier, which is good for trade. Um, with Mongols and a silver tree boom, your gold will outscale your food. And now with a and so coming around the 20-minute mark, you need to be committing. Usually, you used to have to commit into a second TC, so your food could kind of keep up with producing an all cav army comp like I do. With this change, it makes having Mangudai into your army comp a lot easier because now the food cost is much more reduced, and that means you no longer get that bottleneck at that 20-minute mark. Or it's a lot less, right? It should be around. Looks like, yeah, it's about 25% less food that you would require, so you should be able to scale a lot better there without being going to a second TC. If it is, an all cav kind of a comp. So Mangudai have an interesting niche in the game. They're not very strong initially in Feudal Aid. They're an okay unit. They have some use cases for sure, but they get better as the game goes along. They kind of drop in castle age against against heavy armor, but against other units they begin to excel more in castle age. They can stay under TC fire and raid a lot better. And then Imperial Age, they're a pretty good unit in general. So the idea of the build, we have our own variation already previously with the Mangudai Rush and a pseudo Keshik Rush at the same time. And the idea is to get the unit out quick and kind of scale our eco behind it. This build doesn't focus as much on the eco aspect of it. We do skip like our early wheelbarrow like we usually get. And some of our eco techs take quite a bit to come through. But that being said, we're able to get a lot of Mangudai out. Anywhere from the tests I've run, you can get anywhere from around 20 to 22 Mangudai out by the 10-minute mark, which is a pretty good mass. Really, if they want to beat that, they've got to have a really big mass of archers. So, and you also should be at around 8 to 11 traders. Or even you could probably even squeeze in a couple more, but from what I've been running, it's about 8 to 11 traders, and yeah, we're gonna see how it goes. Well, I'm not sure if this is the build that we're gonna stick with throughout the entire season. um, we're gonna see how it goes and how it feels and how it performs. There are some because we skipped those eco upgrades. I feel like it does make it a little bit more easy to counter in some regards. If they switch it up on us in terms of aggression, or if they get some walls up or things like that, we don't really have any cav mixed into this build specifically. But you can always adjust on the fly. But this just is kind of showcasing that we can get a lot more Mangudai out than we used to be able to when we used to do like a Mangudai build previously. We weren't getting around 20, 22 Mangudai. If you went only Mangudai, you would be getting like 18 max. This is usually what I was finding. So this should be a little bit better, a little bit more mass out early, and yeah. So we'll just show you guys the build as we go. Excuse me. And as we go, we'll just go over it, and then we might repass over the build later on. So we did put the A on the hardest, just so we do a little bit of rating and stuff as we go. So again, big change with this season is you get 5 starting sheep, a little bit less sheep, a little bit of food on each starting sheep, but it's definitely a buff overall, I would say, just because it eliminates some of the RNG factors with your build, so your build is just a lot more consistent and you don't have to worry about as many factors. And this would be like an ideal spawn with the front goal like this. But I like it because we can go across the base, check out our opponent, and we don't have to immediately basically head back. We can almost with impunity come around the side and like scout an entire half of the map before we have to head back, which is a big deal. So kind of with a lot of our Mongol builds, we start off chopping 5 villages on the straggler tree and pulling 1 villager to build a uvu. And behind this, we'll rally up to 7 villagers on food. And then we're going to rally 1 more villager onto gold, so we have a 7-2 split. And then we'll go up to 9 villagers on food. So this is your 9-2 build for the Mongols, which is really just a more efficient way to age up. And it helps get rid of some of the effects of a bad RNG spawn because you don't have 3 villagers on gold, and if you have a bad RNG spawn, you've got a lot of idle time with walking involved if your build requires you to pull off a gold and things like that. So I'm still queuing a couple more villagers up. There is a sheep here. No sheep over there. That deer patch is close by. We will rotate onto deer once we have 12 villagers on food a little bit later. We have 9 villagers on wood now, or on food now, so we're going to put 1 more onto send 1 onto wood. And what we used to do is at this point you would send 3 onto wood, and then 1 onto food, 1 onto gold, and then all onto food. With this build now, you can kind of switch this up. You can go a little bit heavier on the wood macro earlier on and drop a double range. And from there you can you can produce not constantly out of all of them, but you can keep them a more constant production of Mangudai with 2 ranges than you could with just 1. And then one important piece of micro here is 3 villagers on 1 tree, and then have them click onto the next tree. But don't just your second tree. You have to reselect the next group. So the first 3 here, and then 2 on another tree. If you don't do this, sometimes you won't have enough wood on age up because of wood chopping and villager shuffling and things like that. So it's better if you grab those first couple of trees exactly. If you forego 5 villagers on wood, you can do it with 4 and get the same double drop. But I like having this extra villager from what I've been testing here on wood early, because you're going to need this wood to get your trade up immediately. And in some spawns, you will be spawning pretty close to what is the the opposite side of the market. I'm not sure how to describe that. So yeah, so basically like this, right? The market is on the far side, so the opposite side is over here, and you're closer to that. So your silver tree is going to travel a fairly short time. So your start time to building traders is actually pretty soon. And if you don't account for that, it's you can have your silver tree kind of like set up and not doing anything for quite some time, which is a pretty big deal. These villagers are going to build the archery range, and then they're going to be shift clicked over onto gold. And you can see we can build 2 archery ranges at this point. When we have some gold banked up here, but don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. And honestly, in the game, I'd probably come over here now. Oh, whoops. A little bit of a late on our click here. Again, this is a far walk. Sometimes you can actually get this range up and going a lot sooner. You can get it going at like the, I'm trying to think, around like the 4:30 mark. So we're a little bit late here, a little bit later than we would like, but again, not a big deal. Especially since we're going against AI here. Okay, build a trader, and you can see why we kind of bank up this wood and stuff, because it allows us to get this going here. I try to select 8 villagers here. And the reason why we select 8 villagers is because we're going to go over onto the deer, the closest deer pack. So now we're on 8 villagers. We're going to go to our control group here, and we'll go to the nearest deer pack, which is up the gut, unfortunately. But we're going to go into these deer like this. Let's build another trader, actually. You do want to be a little bit careful that you don't like so we're just splitting up our villagers here. Try to get as much coverage as we can with this. Now that we got 14 villagers on food, we're just going to stop producing villagers on the food, and we'll go on to wood now. We did forget to get our survival technique, so that's pretty important that you do. And the idea is just to dive in on their eco when you can, look for opportunities, and they'll kind of present themselves. If your opponent like does something like this, right, archers, you can fight archers 1v2 with your Mangudai and win as long as the overall mass stays like below like 20 to 30 units. You should be in a good spot, and this is kind of that area that this build kind of thrives in, right? Because you are fighting in this time zone pretty much. So we can just keep harassing you. I mean, this is the AI, so nobody would actually do this in terms of like how they would react. But we're gonna go up to quite a few more villagers here, or not villagers. Villagers on wood is what I'm trying to say. It's a little bit late. I have been trying to grind out this build for a while, and I guess the time is starting to get to me. So from here, the bane. I mean, if you've been able to get some good damage and you've been able to defend your trade, you should be in a pretty decent spot. Your eco, even though you haven't invested in eco techs, your trade is pretty much carrying you here, right? And you can dive like if, I mean, obviously this is a really slow reaction by the AI, but if someone reacts that slow to you in game, yeah, you're gonna be in a really good spot, because you can do a lot of damage real quickly now with the Mangudai. So from here, I like to go up to around 12 on wood. You can go a little bit heavier, but from here I rally back onto sheep and start pulling some of your gold villagers like one at a time, and have him go on to building a pasture. And from here you can do a couple things. You can age up right now at the 10-minute mark in 1 minute, right? You can stop making troops and age up, or you could double down, and it kind of depends on what you can do. But now your macro is set up to kind of be able to pivot in a lot of ways, so I do think this build has some potential. to give some flexibility, but it is definitely all about how much damage you can get in and how much damage you don't take. So we'll highlight units real quick and we can show you guys. We didn't play it exactly the cleanest. We had a lot of resources floating, and it's kind of intentional, just so you guys could see that if you stop making units, you can get to castle. But it's kind of a decision you can make, right? So we've got 11 traders right now, and I think, let's see if we got any more Mangudai over here. Yeah, 18 Mangudai. So we have 18 Mangudai here. We stopped making units, and we could have definitely made up a whole bunch more. You can see our bank. We have a lot of resources in the bank. So we could go up to castle real quick right now, which is actually pretty big. If he starts making like a pretty big army and fighting, and he's playing turtley, you want to get to castle sooner because your castle age Mangudai are able to dive under TCs and arrow fire a lot better once you get a blacksmith up. And that was the next thing that we definitely need to be building here. We probably put one villager, build a blacksmith, and then send them over to wood. And the idea is to eventually replace all your gold vills here, put them onto wood, and your wood line will be almost 20 on wood, and it's a really good transition into castle having 20 villagers on wood, and your trade line will be picking up a lot more, right? These 11 traders full cross map trade like this is worth a full cross map trade like this is like, from what I've seen, I might be a little bit off with the math, but it's I've only done a little bit of testing. That's about like a villager and like 15% more, right? So it's be like almost having like 12 and a half, 13 villagers on gold with 11 traders. So which is more than enough to replace these and not have to worry about other things. And we could also start getting eco techs and stuff. So it's really up to you kind of how you want to transition behind the aggression. And yeah, if you guys try this build out, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you guys tried any variations of it. If you think, just doing it with the 4 wood and hopping an extra villager onto gold, getting an extra eco upgrade earlier, it'd be interesting to know, because I definitely it's a different style from what I've been used to. Since there's been so many minimal changes with the Mongols in terms of like Mangudai and Keshiks and Horsemen, in terms of like the resource allocations and their costs. So I haven't really had to like vary any of my builds in quite some time. So just a little bit of a different variation in the opener and dropping double production immediately definitely helps crank out a good amount of units, and you can take quite a bit of early pressure here, presence, go around different parts of the map and really force them to sit in their base and make archers, which at the end of the day, if you if he drops triple ranges, you have a couple options. You can double down, or you can drop a stable or 3 stables, right? And you just counter his army comp. And once he pushes across and he starts getting to your trade line with his archers, that's when you need to have your stable transition good to go, and he's going to lose all of his archers, right? So definitely a way to play Mongols that I think is pretty strong, because it forces your opponent to build a specific unit and kind of turtle in his base. So yeah, so and then here at the end I was just showing you guys economy numbers. So total economy at 10 minutes, we're talking 8,362. So that is quite a good number for Mongols. This opening, when I did a lot of my trade openings, when I just purely eco boom, you get higher numbers. But for my standard Keshik opener, 1TC aggression, or Mangudai opener from like previous patch, we were sitting at around 7,800 to 8,500 resources. So getting these traders going pretty quick and hopping onto the deer as early as we do really helps keep this build relatively close in terms of eco to our previous build. And yeah, it's got a pretty decent timing. I was thinking a little bit about if I pulling an extra villager off of either off of gold or off of wood. I was thinking possibly a villager off of wood for the age up. So I'd like get one less villager on. Like I'd only send 4 villagers on wood, but then you lose that on the trader time. It's probably one more villager off of gold I would take, to be honest. But I was thinking take one more villager off of gold to do the silver tree tap up with 5 villagers, just to get those first Mangudai over and across the field sooner. But it's a little rough timing wise, eco wise, to like be able to really support that stable or that range initially. Sometimes it just sits idle long enough that you should have just aged up with 4. So because you are kind of prepping your eco to get other things, right? To get traders and stuff. So if you kind of overcommit into Mangudais too early, you kind of put yourself in a bad spot as well. So that being said, this one is a little bit of a shorter video. I do think, I mean, we've done this build a bunch, so there hasn't been like as much theory crafting that I had to do like for the fast horseman build, just because I hadn't done it in like 5-6 seasons. So I think this is, again, Mongols always has potential with all cav, and this is definitely going to be a decent strategy. I'm not entirely sure about transitions, and if sacrificing all those early eco techs is really gonna affect me in a game, come the 15-minute mark. So we're gonna test it out on ranked and see how it goes. And yeah, I'm definitely curious to see if anybody else does or tries out any variations of the build. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one.